Kirk Cousins has to keep this train rolling.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tanitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Maria Martin. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And of course, the Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So is Zach Robinson and the Falcons offense going to eat this Sunday? We'll talk about that and trade deadline moves, internal movement, or both. We'll download. But first, let's talk about making sure this isn't a trap game for the Falcons. Jarvis, the Falcons are, of course, getting ready to face a team in the Dallas Cowboys that have lost back-to-back games, of course, losing to the Detroit Lions and then losing to the San Francisco 49ers. But you know how it goes. You get a game like last Sunday, you're on a high because you went into Tampa Bay, and what does Kirk Cousins say? You walk in their trap, you take their trap, or something like that. I'm gonna get it right. But anyway, they went in and they took the trap, and now they're back home 4-0 in the division, and the Cowboys are limping. So this is that type of game that if you're not careful, it can be a trap game. What do you think this team needs to do to ensure that it is not a get-right game for the Cowboys and that the Falcons are on the losing end?
I think this is a focus that has to happen, and I think that starts with Kirk, because the way this team is forming, the way this team has shown me throughout this season, Kirk is the engine that is the little engine or big engine that get this team to get the dub. And I think that the way he plays, the way he orchestrates this offense, the way they're able to get Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson involved, I feel like that is the formula for this team to get where they want to be, whatever that is. Like, they already sitting at the top of the South, looking down at everybody, So now they have to make sure they need to do what they need to do to maintain, and that's making sure that Kirk is on point. Kirk is where he needs to be. Kirk is focused. Kirk doesn't have another game like that Seattle game, and making sure that he's feeding the football to all those playmakers that they paid all this money for, investing all this draft capital in, and making sure they're actually getting to that 30-point mark, because I feel like that's the number for them for the rest of this season, especially given all the issues that the Falcons are dealing with on defense.
Yeah, and Maria, I know you've been in the locker room this week. So what did you kind of see from those guys just in terms of the focus or the mindset that's going into this game this Sunday to let you know that, hey, they're ready, they're focused, and they're not going to just take this as a gimme game?
Yeah, I think there is an intense focus. I actually think it starts with Raheem Morris, and he's done a really, really nice job of making sure that guys don't look too far ahead and also don't look in the rearview mirror. I mean, that's very easy to do in football, especially with a team that, granted, hasn't had this kind of success in a long time. So it's easy to feel the hype. The city's super excited. They're off to a 4-0 start in division play. They have an opportunity to be 6-1 in NFC play. All of that stuff. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of buzz, which is really exciting. Kirk does a really nice job too. Jarvis made a really good point. Kirk really is the focal point of everything with this team. And the defensive players will tell you the same thing. They look at Kirk Cousins for their leadership. Obviously, they have really good leaders in Grady and Jesse on that side of the ball as well. But everybody looks to what Kirk is doing. And he's a professional. He's done this for a very long time. And this is a game that he wants to win, right? He's played the Dallas Cowboys 11 times in his career, only managed to beat them twice. He's lost the last 3 times that they've played. He even mentioned that when he was talking on Wednesday, but there is a very intense focus. They know that this is not a divisional game, but it's still a game that matters when you look at the playoff standings later on. It can give you some more juice if you get a win, and especially against a Dallas team that's struggling, and all of their wins so far have come on the road. They know that they need to come out firing on all cylinders, and like you said, T, you don't want to have them have a slip-up game like they had in Seattle. I don't think that that's indicative of what this Falcons team is. It was one of those games that we all talked about. You wash, you forget about it. Well, don't have another one of those against a very struggling Cowboys team, and we could be talking about a team that has a bright future here this year in the NFL.
Yeah. And for you, Aaron, I mean, Maria makes great points. Jarvis makes great points about why you shouldn't let this be one of those games where you're getting to post game and we're having a post game conversation and we're wondering, oh God, not again, not a Seattle Seahawks type of situation again. Or, you're one of those teams that's now trending up, right? And all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you're on the losing end of a team that's definitely trending down. What do these Falcons need to do to make sure that they're not in that conversation where the Cowboys are today?
Well, I think, having that Seahawks game, I think really helps because it was a similar situation where the Falcons had won 3 straight, Seattle had lost
Mm-hmm.
3 straight, and everybody sort of assumed, okay, that trend will continue. And then Seattle came in and really controlled that game. And so the Falcons can just look back to 2 weeks ago and say, hey, if we're not, on our P's and Q's, if we're not, crossing our T's, dotting our I's and whatnot this week, we could have a similar sort of letdown type of performance. So I think, having that previous experience is definitely going to help this team. You saw their response coming off of that Seahawks loss in the Bucs game and playing great football. I think Jarvis and Maria have nailed it. I think it's really boiled down to the coaching staff. It's boiling down to the offense. They just got to kind of keep the pressure on the Cowboys. And then, that I think that will be the sort of thing where if they can continue to score points, that will put the Cowboys in a bad position offensively where you can get Dak Prescott to maybe turn the ball over because he's pressing late in the game to try to keep pace with the Falcons. And so that to me is how they should play this. And, based off of how they performed over the past week, I think there's a lot of optimism that they should be able to pull that off.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you make because that team, that Dallas Cowboys team, they still do have Dak Prescott, right? So there's still every possibility that he can become, as my friends say, he's been Dakota Prescott this entire season, but he can turn back into Dak Prescott at any given moment. And we know that this Cowboys team can still score because they attempted, we know it was kind of a late comeback, but they did push the 49ers to the limit last week. So you have to still respect what they're able to do offensively now. Maria, one of the good things that we've seen as this Falcons offense continues to evolve is that they're amongst the league leaders in fewest 3 and outs this season. So when you hear that kind of stat, what does that speak to the most for you about this offense overall? And do you think that can be maybe a factor in this week's matchup?
It's so funny. Think about how far we've come on offense from this team. Week 1, there is just this, I don't know, this cry for help, and everyone's thinking that Zach Robinson is the worst offensive coordinator on the planet, and we're focused on third downs and how there's third and a million, and that's really hard to manage as an offense. And now you're throwing out that stat that they have the fewest 3 and outs in the league. I mean, it's really crazy. It just tells you how efficient this offense is being. And I think efficient is really the key. Kirk Cousins is coming off of his most efficient performance. Zach Robinson even doubled down on that and said he thought he was incredibly sound in Tampa. It just means that as we get further into this season, they're figuring out what works. Establish the run, which is something you're going to have to do against Dallas. We know that their defense cannot handle the rush very well at all. They're towards the bottom in rushing yards, total rushing yards so far this year. So Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, I heard that they're trying to come up with a new nickname, no Thunder and Lightning anymore. So I don't want to call them Thunder and Lightning, but, get those two established on first and second down. It creates this vertical threat that you've now seen with Kyle Pitts be so successful over the last couple of games, particularly him in Tampa. It opens up a lot more on offense. So yeah, sure. I think that stat could be a factor against Dallas on Sunday, but I think it more speaks to the fact that they're figuring out how to be efficient on offense, and Kirk is moving this offense really well. And let's give the offensive line a lot of credit because we haven't done that very much. They're keeping him super clean. He even mentioned, I was asking him what his teammates' reaction was after he took off on that run. And he said, looking back on it, the reason why I had the ability to do that was because I'm super clean in the pocket and I have some time to think about it. And he wishes that he would have given the ball to Ray, and he thinks that would have been a touchdown in that scenario. But look, he has time. And I think that's critical for Kirk because he's such a good progression passer. It's on full display right now. I think it's awesome.
Indeed. And when you hear that stat, Free, what do you think about in terms of what that speaks to for this Falcons offense?
Yeah, I think Maria nailed it. It's about the efficiency, the run game working, the passing game working, all those various things. And I think because early in the season they were kind of struggling on third down, right? And so you wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily connect those stats, but I guess that would tell you that, hey, they're doing a really good job on those early down situations
Mhm.
where, they're coming up with things. And I think that speaks to what Maria's talking about, where, I was one of those people that was like, Zach Robinson ain't it after that week 1 game. And then every week it has built, to the point it's like, Zach Robinson's doing a great job. And
Yeah.
now I'm getting back to where I was preseason, where I'm like, is he going to be one and done here in Atlanta because of how good a job he's been doing over these last couple of weeks, and get a head coaching job? And so I think when you're talking about the play caller, like a lot of it is those early down situations where the play caller has a lot more freedom to do things and mix things in. So I think that stat kind of really tells you that Zach Robinson has basically been in his bag. And really, I think Raheem spoke to it this week, where somebody is going to get, left behind, given that there's only one football and you have all these weapons that are getting featured. And, I think this past week it was probably Tyler Algier that kind of got left behind in this Bucks game, with Mooney and Ray as well, getting sort of left behind. And so that kind of pick your poison type of offense, I think that Zach Robinson has been able to engineer and Kirk has been able to execute. And as Maria said, like all the individual players doing their jobs and whatnot, I think that kind of shows you that.
Yeah.
And to add to what Aaron is saying, when you think about the being able to sustain drives, Raheem Morris talked about in his press conference about how he wants to win the time of possession, because but there are moments if you can score quickly, obviously go ahead and do that. But the idea of being an efficient offense to be able to hold on to the football, give your defense rest, and Lord knows they need all the rest they can get sometimes. So and being able to sustain drives and really command it and take over a game, especially when you have a lead in the fourth quarter and you want to go into your 4-minute offense and be able to bleed that clock out and get out of there with a win. So I think that them not being the least, amount of team in the league as far as from a 3-and-out standpoint, that I think that speaks to their running game. And we talked about that should have been a strength coming into the season because of the veterans that they have on the offensive line and the continuity that they have when those guys being used to playing with each other. So I feel like that is all this is starting to really just come together. Like Aaron said, with Zach Robinson having that first game and then just how he's just evolved. And now you're talking about people copycatting the half motion and having that H-back go up in the middle of the line and try to find some work. Yeah, people are going to start copying that. So I think that when you have, teams around the league starting to copy what you're doing, I think you're doing something right.
I think so too. And Jarvis, you speak of it, so we're going to talk about it. 223 yards. Ooh, is Zach Robinson and the Falcons offense going to eat this Sunday? We'll discuss when we take it under further review. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. But it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime that we don't want to see this Sunday. But that's why 5 Hour Energy created the the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot, which is pretty darn cool. Or Stand the Fan, rather. It's a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy that is made just for super fans like you. The fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave, we see you. We see you. So what if there's a huge play at the end of the game or even at the beginning of the game? You want to be hyped, right? And you want to keep that same energy throughout the game or big upcoming matchup. This is still it, because like our girl Maria said, if the Falcons can win, this gives them one more notch in the NFC in beating those conference teams. So 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, in this case, the Atlanta Falcons, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy shot is here. So what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com and shipped nationwide. So, Maria, I think this is an opportunity for this Falcons team to eat. Last week, San Francisco absolutely torched the Cowboys to the tune of 223 yards on the ground. And Jarvis was just talking about the fact that, how do you get everybody involved, if you will? How do you make sure that Tyler gets his touches? How do you make sure that Bijan gets his touches? Well, I think they're both going to get some touches this week. And you're going to see the offense that we thought we would, which is one that is run first and pass later. So looking at this Cowboys defense and how leaky it's been in terms of the run game, what should Zach Robinson maybe do to take advantage of it?
Yeah, run on those early downs. I mean, we've been talking about it for the last, 15 minutes about establishing the run. This is definitely the time to do it. I said it earlier. Dallas has the second worst rush defense in the entire NFL. They're surrendering 28.3 total points per game right now, which is also second worst in the entire National Football League. And let's be honest, Dallas's defense has suffered some really critical injuries, right? And we don't know if Micah Parsons is going to play on Sunday, but even if he does, that ankle cannot be 100%. So you can take advantage of that all day. But I think establishing the run on those early downs is really going to help open up that vertical game in a team that has struggled a lot. You called them leaky. It's very true. And then look at this whole debacle that Trayvon Diggs has been a part of with the reporter in Dallas. There's something about that. You can get under his skin. It's very clear now because you saw that on full display. You saw the frustrations starting to boil over for this Dallas team. That is never a good sign. And so I think if you get under his skin, he's going to have some fun matchups there on the outside, I think, on Sunday. Establish the run for sure. This defense has not been good. And granted, again, you got 3 Pro Bowlers that have been injured for this Dallas defense. You can't expect them to be exactly what you thought they would be in preseason. Dallas may be one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL right now because there were such high expectations for them. And this is the perfect opportunity for an offense that is clicking on all cylinders to really take advantage and make a statement on Sunday.
Indeed. And, when you think about, Aaron, what that rushing game really means as well, it goes back to what Jarvis said, which is time of possession. So just in case Dakota doesn't show up Sunday and Dak actually does, one of the things you can do to keep him out of rhythm is keep him off the field. But for you, what are some of the things that you want to see Zach Robinson do because you know that he can take advantage of a weakened Dallas defense?
Yeah, I think Zach Robinson could be in his bag as far as the run game goes this week, just because of the Cowboys defense struggling to the degree that Maria's talking about, where you can throw in some jet sweeps, you can throw in some reverses and end arounds. Like, you can be as creative as you want to be against this Cowboys defense because seemingly any run play will work against this defense given the struggles that they do. So I would love to see Zach Robinson just sort of dig deep into the bag and like, okay, what's this play that I had in the playbook and whatnot that I was like a little unsure of running. Oh, we're gonna run like a triple reverse to Drake London or Kyle Pitts or something. Like, do whatever you want to do. I think that's the type of situation that you potentially have in addition to just sort of the tried and trues where we're just gonna smash Tyler Algier into the line of scrimmage and see how many bodies he can carry, and Bijan how many bodies and ankles he can break as he's juking guys in the open field and all that sort of stuff. So I think the Falcons can be as exotic and as creative as they want to be with their run game this week, going up against this Cowboys team. And as Maria said, and as you said, T, like, that's going to be a critical part of their game plan, just because you don't really want this game to get into the type of shootout that it has the potential to be with Dak Prescott going toe-to-toe with Kirk Cousins, because that's a game where you have 2 quarterbacks that have turned the ball over a little bit too much, over the season, and you don't want to have the game kind of swing on a turnover. So you want to be able to control the clock, control the line of scrimmage, all those various things. So I do feel like the Falcons run game could be an important part of that.
Yeah, and Jarvis, I feel like if you like ground and pound and you like to just see a drive that's 7, 8, 9 minutes, this could be that kind of Sunday fun day for Zach Robinson and this run game.
You know what? And the run game for sure. But I think here's the thing that where this game can potentially get out of hand in a good way for the Falcons. I feel like, Bijan Robinson matched up against any one of those Dallas Cowboy linebackers, and we know Mike Zimmer likes to run a man-to-man coverage. And if he leaves 7 in man-to-man coverage with a guy like Kendricks or whatever, or Overshown, those are some of the things that I feel like the Zach can really get in his bag, like Aaron mentioned. So if he can figure out a way to get Bijan matched up in a situation where he's the one-on-one with a guy like that, I feel like the Falcons offense can really start to look like like what we expected it to, which it's been doing lately. But I think you can take
Yeah.
it to another level when you start putting things like that on tape.
And Aaron, speaking of another level, and actually, Maria, before I go to Aaron and kind of talk about someone who's been taking it to another level, you wanted to share something else as
Yeah,
well.
one really, really quick point. We've been talking since the beginning of the year, and really Raw has that on offense, their identity, they want to establish the run first. Well, when you
Yes.
look back at everything that they've done when it comes to run plays, the stretch play for them in their rushing attack has been their bread and butter. That is where everything, that is the genesis of this offense. So I think that paired with everything else that they can do on the ground, I think is going to be, it's going to be fun to watch on Sunday.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's the thing, like for me, I don't know about you guys, but I don't always like, it was great, don't get me wrong, to see the fact that the Falcons were able to have 3 explosive plays and be able to get 3 touchdowns and not even touch the red zone. That was beautiful because we hadn't necessarily seen it. But yeah, I'm kind of that person too when Tyler Algier goes into his angry man run. Like that's fun to me. That's when I'm like, ooh, we're about to play some complimentary football. So I think that's really, really cool. And Aaron, as you continue to improve on the back half of this season, and we start talking about a real playoff run, if you will, and going into the playoffs strongly, you got to continue to evolve that run game and make sure that it is your bread and butter just as much as you ensure that your passing game is efficient. But got to give love to the passing game, and particularly Kyle Pitts, because we've been seeing some much better play out of him of recent. Obviously, he surpassed the 60-yard mark in receiving for 4 straight games. Never done that in his career since his rookie year. So for you, what does KP's recent success maybe mean also for Zach Robinson's offense going forward?
Well, the main thing that it's meant is a victory lap for myself, because I remember after that Saints game when
That's right,
everybody
Aaron.
was, ready to trade Kyle Pitts, and I was like, hey, it's one bad game, guys, calm down, like let's relax. And you've seen, the 4 weeks in, so that's the main thing. Obviously, I got to be petty about stuff, but no, I think really it really goes back to the thing with Kyle Pitts was, him being this unicorn, him being this weapon. You have to make defenses fear him, right? That's even if you're not necessarily getting him the ball consistently, which was the issue early in the season, you want defenses to say, hey, we have to respect what this guy can do. And these last couple of weeks, I think, is really putting that fear into defenses. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's kind of your pick your poison type of defense. And that really is something that defensive coordinators like, okay, well, we're going to double, that the touchdown that Kyle, the first touchdown, like the Bucks defense was basically bracketing both Darnell Mooney and Drake London based off of what they've done this year. And that left a one-on-one for Kyle Pitts. And so Kyle Pitts exploited that to a touchdown. And so, like, now defense is okay. Well, now we got to bracket Kyle Pitts, and so that leaves Darnell Mooney or Drake London to a one-on-one. And then once you focus all your attention on them, then Ray-Ray McCloud or Bijan Robinson, breaks out a check down and jukes somebody in open field and busts it for a 50-yard touchdown or something like that. So it's one of those things where whether Kyle Pitts is consistently getting the production, that he has had this over this last month, you want to see him a featured part of this offense so that it basically makes defenses have to defend every blade of grass, and they just don't have enough bodies and space and players in order to do that. And that is going to allow not only Kyle Pitts to eat, but everybody else on this offense.
And to be honest with you, I think this is one of the reasons why the Falcons have put the emphasis on getting the quarterback, right? Like, because we understand that you aren't able to do any of this, what we're talking about, if you don't have Kirk, and have that veteran, like Aaron has always been saying, an adult in a room, because I feel like, even though Cal has all the talent in the world, one thing that has been consistent when you talk to his teammates and they have been willing to say it out loud, when he is at his best, meaning a lot of times if guys are constantly telling you that means that sometimes you aren't at your best. You aren't running the fastest. You aren't doing what you're supposed to do. So I feel like when you have guys consistently saying that, making sure they stay on Cal, making sure Kirk is always talking about, hey man, when you're running your fastest in your route, man, I'm telling you, nobody can guard you. And I think that constantly being drilled to him, hopefully he can take it in, and that can become who he is as a player without people having to come in like that. So I think that, with Kirk and what he's been able to do, not only from a leadership standpoint, but picking out in guys and seeing something in guys and saying, hey man, this is the type of talent that you can be if you do this. And that's what being a grown up in the room is all about. Because some, young guys, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, they can't say nothing to doggone Kyle. Like, what type of success have they really had in the league? So when you have somebody,
Yeah.
the messenger changes, I feel like that's when it starts to really resonate. And hopefully Kyle can take this with him, not just for this season, but and beyond as a Falcon.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, a grown-up has to stand up on the defensive side of the ball as well, because getting that guy on the ground remains a challenge for this Falcons defense. We'll discuss how we think Terry Fontenot will handle it in What's Next. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Built. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built, BILT, is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment, and they're designed to meet your lifestyle. So earn points by paying rent now when you join or go to built.com/lockedonnfl. That's JOINBILT.com/locked-on-NFL. Now make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/locked-on-NFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. All right, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and of course, one of our sponsors of the Atlanta Football Party. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you've heard us talking about how you can get some run yards on this Dallas Cowboys defense. So if you get a hunch in the game that Atlanta, the Falcons, are about to go off on the ground, maybe you should go with that. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. So think about it. The Falcons have done pretty darn well in the first half of the season and only look to improve in the second half of the season. So you may be able to get big returns on FanDuel when you get that hunch in the middle of the game. Check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel and is programmed to bring you the biggest stories daily without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today also brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Aaron, as good as the Falcons have been on offense and all of the accolades that we talked about, things that they're doing that put them at the top of the league, well, not so much for the defense. Unfortunately, Falcons D is the worst in the NFL when it comes to sacking the quarterback. And we know that the Falcons can address this at the trade deadline. They do have a couple of days left to do so, but also they've talked about maybe looking internally to put themselves in position to get a win even this week, and certainly for what they want to do the back half of the season. How are you feeling in terms of what this Falcons team can or should do as they approach the trade deadline and the second half of the season?
Well, what can you say about the Falcons defense at this point in time in the pass rush? I think they should be proactive, looking for opportunities to make an upgrade there. But at the same time, given who's going to be available at the trade deadline, like you hear the rumors about Zadarius Smith, and it's like, well, that feels a lot like the Matthew Judon trade at this point in time. And do you feel like, 2 Matthew Judon trades is better than what? I guess, yeah, sure. Anything, there's the pass rush get any worse? No, basically at this point in time. So you I guess you got to do something at that point. But it is one of those things where it's like, all right, like I think when you look at it, can you make a trade? Yes. But I think there's still issues that you have to deal with, you sort of internally on the team currently, in order to maximize that trade, whoever you wind up acquiring, or maximize the players currently on the roster. And I think, for the Falcons, you got to be able to stop the run a little bit better so that you can get into more third and long situations. You
Yeah.
started to see that sort of change for them against Carolina and then Seattle. They weren't able to take advantage of those opportunities against Seattle, but then they kind of regressed a little bit last week against Tampa Bay, where they were able to get in a lot of easy third and manageable situations. And that's a big reason why they were able to control time of possession early in that game. I think that's an issue you got to deal with. I think you got to think a little bit about, maybe playing a little bit more press coverage with AJ Terrell and whatnot, so that quarterbacks just have to hold on to the ball maybe just a beat longer. So maybe that pressure can get there at home a little bit more. Just things like that. You just got to tweak a little bit, and hopefully you'll get better play in the second half of the season, regardless of whether or not you make that trade at the trade deadline. But certainly I think there will be options for the Falcons at the trade deadline to potentially upgrade. I don't know if there's going to be an option that's going to solve this Falcons pass rush where, we're going to see this team go from dead last in sacks to 15th in sacks, but it's like maybe you can go from 32 to 28 or something like that. And that's progress at this point in time for the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron literally took the words out of my mouth when it comes to, I don't think that there is one quick fix for what's happening with the Falcons right now. I mean, 6 sacks obviously is abysmal. We bring it up all the time. We talk about it every week. The coaches know it's coming. They're last in the NFL. You have to talk about it. The pass rush is terrible. But at the same time, what's going to fix it? I mean, it's not going to be one trade and then all of a sudden, okay, they're one of the best pass rushing defenses, and that it doesn't happen that way. And I think that this stems from not really investing in the draft in those early rounds over the last, couple of years. They've gone all offensive players in the first round, and look at the offensive success that they're having now, and you're seeing all of that come to fruition. The development there is incredible. And yes, they have added pieces elsewhere on offense. I'm very well aware of that. However, some of these young guys that they've drafted so high, look what they're doing. And I think that it goes back to that. Also, obviously you wish that Matt Judon would be giving you a lot more success. 68 career sacks, only 1.5 this year. It's not good. And on Wednesday, we always see Matt Judon as the red sleeve guy. He was wearing gray sleeves for the first time ever. So I don't know if this is just him trying to change the juju, not like sleeves are going to fix your issue. But, I think that he probably was like, let's switch something up. Let's see if I can figure something out. But no, I think Aaron's right. I don't think that there's a quick fix. You got to look at what you have and really try to figure out how exactly you can make it better with the players that you have on your roster. Not to say that somebody else from the outside couldn't help you a little bit. And I think that that's great. I think they should explore that option. I just don't think it's going to solve all your problems. And the good news is, back when you look at the Seattle game, they were getting a little bit more pressure. I thought that the defense did take a really nice step forward. Again, he mentioned it, took a little bit of a step back against Tampa, though 2 different offenses, I think a little bit. But, hone in more on that. Grady Jarrett said it's really individual assignments that need to be sharper, which I thought was very interesting. For a while, he was talking a lot about the team as a unit, the defense as a unit. And now he's saying, okay, individually, we have to be sharper. We have to be better in our assignments. But, we're talking about, this is week 9. We shouldn't be talking about stuff like this at this point. So I think, just trying to look at the individual performances rather than one quick thing is going to fix this defense. I'm kind of in a place where I don't want to say this is what they're going to be, but I think it's kind of what they're going to be.
Yeah, I'll say it. This is who they are.
Wait,
No,
don't say it. Don't say it. You have a
No,
positivity sweatshirt on.
I am being positive. Here's how.
You're positive
So
that they're going to
this
be who they are at this
I'm positive. I'm positive that this is going to be who they are. But one thing that I am encouraged by when it comes to this defense and how they play,
Troy
if they can
Anderson.
give me what they gave me last game as far as forcing turnovers, don't laugh at me. When they're forcing turnovers, this can become who you are, right? Because they're doing it. They got one of the best safety in the league. They got, Justin Simmons can potentially coming back. I want to see some all pro type play from him. Can we get that? I haven't seen that yet. I want to see that from him. And then when you have those guys back there, ball hawking, AJ Terrell got 2 picks in the last few weeks. Like, when the last time we've been able to say that crap? So when you have this secondary starting to come around and formulate itself to be potentially one of the best in the league, I mean, shoot, if you can show me that, then we can figure out the rest later. Because I think that something that really concerned me with Matthew, as far as Matthew Judon goes, it's just it look like he ain't in no shape. he just doesn't like he ain't in no shape. He's not in any shape, like, because I just don't see any explosiveness. Now, if you're telling me that his career from a is like a running back where you just fall off the map one year, you have these ascension kind of dips a little bit in your career as far as production standpoint, and then you just fall off the doggone map. Unless you're telling me that dude don't look like he's in any type of shape. And as far as switching up to the gray sleeves, yeah, go and hop on that Peloton too, bro. Like let's get that win together because that's the only way you're gonna be able to get home. Like if you sitting here on your knees before a play in the second or third defensive series, something wrong, dog. Like that's not supposed to be the case, especially when you're 8 games in. Like we're 8 games into the season.
Yeah.
That should not be happening at this point. So yeah, so I'm being positive by saying, pass rush, that's
It
it
is what
is
it
what it
is.
is at this point.
Yeah.
But hey, if you can continue to turn teams over, that's gonna make up for a lot of that.
Yeah, you make a
Mhm.
good point about the secondary too, especially because Dak Prescott, 2 picks in each of his last 3 games. I mean, he'll turn the ball over. And
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
great for a secondary who's been able to identify some of those 50-50 balls and grab them. I mean, Jesse Bates, oh my goodness, on the flea flicker in Tampa, he is the best safety in the league. And it's a blessing to have both him and Justin Simmons. I know you're under impressed with him, but I think it's a blessing to have those 2 guys back there for sure. That takes a lot of the weight off of the pass rush. That is what it is. If they didn't have those 2 guys and possibly AJ Terrell as well, we'd be in a little bit more of a panic state. And especially when you're thinking about the playoffs, that would be very alarming. But their ability to potentially punch the ball out, Jesse Bates actually talked about that at length on Wednesday. The art of punching the ball out, which is very interesting. You should go listen to that conversation. He said that Nate Landman gets the best punches on balls and they don't come out for whatever reason. He said he literally is the guy that gets the best ones. It's just sometimes it doesn't go your way. So go listen to that conversation with Jesse. But yeah, I think you make a great point. Continue to turn the ball over, give Kirk Cousins and the offense a chance to make that into points. Then that's the only thing that can help this lack of pass rush at this point.
Yeah, that would cover all the blemishes. So everydayers, we appreciate you and also invite you to join us for Falcons, not once, but twice a week. The Atlanta Football Party is now here for you Mondays and Thursdays, where we'll continue to give you the best Falcons coverage here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. And of course, be sure to also stop by Locked On Falcons for your second listen. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you next time.